So I'm just going to introduce Trevor, Imei, Lumina, Brad, Chris, and Becca. So they are, again, our sponsors. They're just really investing in our lives as young people. So look to them as wise counsel, look to them as mentors, look to them as people you just get to know, and they have so much to share with us. So at this time, I'll just pray for us, and then we can get started. Father, I just want to thank you so much for tonight, just this gathering where we can just fellowship and just learn more about you and how we can have godly relationships. So I just thank you for all these sponsors here on stage that they really do want to just care for us and just invest in our lives. So I thank you for just the experiences and the wisdom they have to pass down to us. And I ask that you just let this night be spirit-filled and edifying to our lives. So we thank you in your son's name and pray. Amen. So as we start, there were some questions that came up after our last panel last week. And so I think they wanted to start out with maybe some of the topics or questions that came up that we just want to share with everyone in case there was any confusion. And so I'll leave the floor to them. And I'll just kind of walk around, and if you have a question on paper, just raise your hand and I'll come grab it for you. And after they're done with their sharing just this brief intro, it's all interactive. We want questions to be asked. We want it to be just you asking questions. But if it does get quiet, if you guys are shy about some things, I have these questions up here that you guys have written, and we can read those off too. And so I'll leave it to you guys. Yeah. Oh, a question, sorry. Paper questions. I'll be here.
I know I was very clear last week.
About what?
But these guys want me to clear things up. No, I was unclear. So I dropped the phrase. I said spiritual sex. Remember that one? When I said, don't get caught praying alone with the guy, or don't get caught praying alone with the girl behind the closed door. And so the intention was not to say that, oh, I can pray with Amina and I can say the right words and then we can get busy. I don't have any magic words to stimulate someone. It's not that. It's just that when two people get together and it's in a private situation behind a closed door, no matter what it is, if you're watching a movie or if you are just having a conversation, it can get pretty intimate. And especially so I was trying to make the point that sometimes when we pray, I'll say my spouse and I, because these guys couldn't relate with me. Sometimes when we pray, it can get so emotionally intimate, along with being spiritually intimate with God, that a hug may turn into getting busy. That was my only point for the girls and the guys, not to pray alone with someone that you may be interested in, because you don't know what could happen, just because of the bonding or the intimacy that may be shared.
Thank you for clearing that up. I guess before we jump into questions for this week, do you guys have any other questions or confusions about anything that happened last week, or any questions that you would want to follow up with? This would be a good time to ask.
Trevor, being a practical guy, you mentioned last week one with your wife is not 1 + 1 = 1.5, or you said 1 + 1 = 3.
Yeah.
Can you explain that from a practical?
Yeah. May and I were very different in many ways. And people who knew the both of us even before we started dating, they would say we were very different. And a lot of people would say, I don't know if they would work even, together as a couple, because it just might not even match. When we started dating, this is afterwards when we were both believers. We complemented each other really well. Meaning when we did ministry together, let's say if I was going to do ministry alone, I could, let's say, work, let's say 5 hours, right? Okay. But when I'm doing ministry with her, I enjoy it so much, and It's just that we have this synergy in terms of, planning an event. It becomes very fun, and it's something that, when we work together, it's just something that we, enjoy the planning piece, enjoy, meeting people. We enjoy, let's say, inviting people over. Or let's say, if I'm meeting somebody for dinner one-on-one, it would be, okay, it'll be, let's say, for 2 hours and we can talk about certain things. But when both of us meet with somebody or meet with a couple or etc., it's like, I don't know, we can talk for hours and we can spend time. And let's go back to the 5-hour example. If we do something in ministry together, we can go like 10 hours. And that's what I mean by it multiplies.
I think maybe a practical example, I'm not sure if we mentioned it last week because maybe we shared during the meeting, but for instance, I was sharing with some of the girls earlier that when we got married, it was great because in my family, I'm the oldest and I have 2 younger sisters, and at that time they weren't Christian. But having him with me together, he was able to be kind of an encouragement to them in terms of when they had questions or they had interest, not necessarily in spiritual things, but in building a relationship. He was able to just be an older brother for them and someone that they can respect. And he knows how much I wanted them to become a Christian. And so it's 1 + 1 is not 2, but it multiplies because I was sharing with the girls earlier that through, of course it's through God, but after we got married, as we were, trying to reach out to our family members, it was so much easier to do it when I had a partner, when I had Trevor there. And I was so thankful when my youngest sister became a Christian and he was able to rejoice with me because he also shared that desire for her to know God. And also I might have shared how it was awesome when my sister got married that she respected him so much that she asked him to officiate and he was able to share the gospel with her and her husband and their friends. And so being together, if we were separate, I would never be able to do those things on my own. But because we were together, it just multiplies.
It's more complete too, yeah. Did I answer that question? Somewhat, yes, a little bit.
I think you're confused. I just heard some people were confused about 1 + 1 not equaling 2. So.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks. Good question.
Anyone have a question? Hopefully it's not completely random.
Not related to last week, that's
Yeah, go for it.
okay, so my question is about submission. So we kind of talked about that last week, but my question is twofold for all of you guys. So for the women, you guys are strongly opinionated, you guys are independent. How do you know when to submit to your husband, and how do you know when to take a stand in your choice or whatever your opinion is? And then conversely for the husbands, how do you know when to accept that opinion or when to actually
Ladies first.
I think maybe what comes from that question is it's hard because of the culture that we grew up in as women, that we're told that we're supposed to be independent. We're supposed to do things on our own and not rely on a guy. I know my dad said that, having 3 girls, you gotta be able to do things on your own and not depend on even your future spouse. Like, take care of yourself. So I think maybe that question, that's kind of like the background that might be in it. And with that kind of attitude, it may make it difficult for a female to submit to their husband. Of course, it doesn't say submit to your boyfriend or even to your fiance. It says submit to your husband. So until we're in a marriage relationship, that's the context of it. But I guess going back to your question, for me, it is a difficult time. I have a difficult time, and I struggle with that submission. And I'm just being honest with you, because yeah, because I grew up in that kind of culture and that kind of mentality, but I see God shaping me and see God transforming my mind. Even this past week when we had women's mentoring, the book that we're reading talks about the distinctiveness in biblical womanhood and what we're designed to be. And I know Mina knows what I'm talking about. So it's accepting the fact that I'm different from him, and submitting to him is easier when I trust that he's following Christ, if that makes sense. So when I'm trusting that God is the authority over him, then that puts me at ease in terms of submitting to him the decisions that he makes for our relationship and for our family. So I guess in terms of the specifics, I mean, it's kind of case by case. If you want to ask specific questions about that, maybe later on, but I think that's kind of, for me, like the general thought behind the question and how I would answer that.
I think for me, it became easier and easier with time. I remember our premarital, I guess, interview with the pastor. That was the only thing I said, Pastor, I have a problem with this verse about submitting. I don't want to be a doormat. That's what I told Pastor. You remember? Probably not. But I have a very strong personality, and for me to submit to my husband was very hard in the beginning. And as she was mentioning, if he has his best interest towards God, I mean, he has God in whatever decision he makes, it makes it easier. What made it easier for me is to let go and said, after we communicated, I would strongly say, well, this is why I think you should follow this. I will give all my reason, and he would have his own reason. And if at the end of that conversation he still feels strongly, I am to back off. And the bad thing is, afterwards, I'm like, I told you so. But it's trying not to say that. It has become easier and easier with time. I have to say that it was very hard in the beginning. And if your spouse shows really strong character in God, it's much easier for the wife to follow.
It's something I'm still learning. I have a very strong personality, as Chris mentioned last week. But I think I've had to learn that I really need to communicate with him, because I've always been used to just doing whatever I want or what I'm thinking and not really sharing those thoughts with Chris a lot, and then he gets really frustrated with me because it's not a decision, or most of the time it's just a decision that I've made and I haven't really consulted him. But I mean, I echo Romina and May. It is easier to follow if you know that your husband is following what Christ wants.
Like when we moved back to SF, and maybe this might be for your case, when you get married, some people may move or situations change, or even, so the thing is, when we moved back, we had to decide what church to go to, and we've shared with people that we went to a lot of different churches and we were checking it out, and I actually really liked this one church, and Trevor actually, he loved Sunset a lot, and that was one decision that I had to say, I will submit to God. Ultimately, I submit to God, and because he loves this church so much, it was important for me to know that if this is a place where he is going to love God and love people, then I will submit to God, and I will want to come to this church and make this our home church. That was like one of the things, I guess, in our story about how I developed that sense of submission. Prior to that, there was a time when we were doing ministry together, and somehow he pulled out of the ministry, and I didn't understand, and I was really frustrated. And he decided he's just gonna take a break and just do a road trip. And I felt like it was totally random, but he didn't know where he was going. He just knew that he just needed to be alone with God. But being married, of course, like he shouldn't just go alone by himself. And so, I know this story is kind of weird, but my pastor's wife, she said, you better go with him. Even though I really didn't want to go, I was like, I just want to stay here and I want to be comfortable with my church family, and I don't want to go with him when he's struggling and dealing with his issues and needing to be with God and be alone. And so in that way, like, I had to tone down my desires, what I wanted to do to remain comfortable and to submit to his decision of needing that time alone to be with God.
And during that time, I mean, now I'm trying to answer the guide piece. During that time, I don't think May saw the extent of what's happening, and the whole time I had her in mind, actually. I was really trying to, not just to protect her, but to protect our relationship. And like, you know, like what May shared just in the beginning, you know, as long as I have my full heart, you know, with the best intentions for her and our relationship, just like how Christ had, you know, like his intentions for the church, you know, I just pray that all guys, you know, really have that in mind. And that's difficult. I mean, don't get me wrong, guys, we're proud, you know, we're prideful, and if you start dating, and especially if, you know, your girlfriend or your spouse or your fiance publicly, like, does something to you, you're like, ooh, it hurts, you know, it's like, oh, painful, right? But sometimes, you know, as guys, we need to lead, and leading sometimes requires us to love deep, loving somebody, you know, so much that you're willing to take that pain, and hopefully they'll see it. And that was the time, you know, that I went through that process, and you know, I think now, after years later, we look back, we're like, wow, you know, God was actually there guiding us through that process. So, yeah, we can share more, and these are more personal and stories. Maybe we can share with some of you guys later if we get to know each other more.
We all have to talk?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, I forgot the question, but just to say something. I make it very easy for her to submit because I don't make mistakes. Good leader.
And you don't say anything either.
What was the question for the guys?
I said, how do you know when to lead and have them submit and when to respect their opinion?
Brad just doesn't say anything, so you know, that's how he respects your opinion.
Well, this question might actually, if we step back, it asks actually, what does it mean to spiritually lead? So maybe we can start with that if you want to jump into the answer for that.
That's better.
Isaiah, you write this question? Okay, so in Ephesians 5, I think it's Ephesians 5, where it talks about the guy using water to purify his bride so he can present her pure and blameless before God, or something like that. So maybe that's what this
Washing her with the word.
Washing her with the water of the word to make her pure, something like that. So when I think of spiritually leading, when I hear that term in terms of the marriage relationship, that's what I think of. Trying to, being accountable for her spirituality. I mean, I can mentor someone, but it's not as long-lasting as a spouse, as someone that's going to be with me, you know, forever on this earth, or as long as whatever. And so, it's a much deeper commitment in that way.
I think leadership is responsibility. I mean, you know, if you think about leaders or bosses, you're like, oh, you know, that person's like the man, they get to make all the decisions, they have all this power, all this privilege, but it's really responsibility. That's how I think about leadership, and I think that's why, that's one of the reasons why, I think that Rebecca should listen and follow, because I can't just think about myself, right? The decisions that I make aren't just for me, right? They're for Rebecca, they're for my kids, they're for our family, and they're for God. It is a burden. It's not just fun. That's how I think about it.
I think for me, like spiritual leading, I mean, I can have a title as the husband and we're supposed to lead, but or I can have more Bible knowledge and I can try to lead May, saying that I have more knowledge. But at the end of the day, if I can't win her heart, it doesn't really matter. How can I win her heart is by really just sacrificing how Christ sacrificed for, all of us. And so wanting to die, God, from my own pride at the end of the day, willing to, there's certain situations that will come up for the guy to lead sacrificially. And I don't know what it is for you guys when you first start to date or have that, I don't know what that situation may be. And for me, one of the key landmark decisions for us was when I was struggling through a certain process with, pretty much it was based on a relationship and also a situation that we're in. Maybe when we break off in gender groups later, then we can share a little bit more. But that sacrificial thing had to come out, and I put her first because I care for her over everything in my whole life. And those situations will come up. And for the guys, if you really, have that love and sacrificial love, then it should come out. That you're willing to give up everything that you have for this special someone. And it is. But I'm just, in the situation. What they asked was like, what about God and Christ first and all? That is first. But I'm talking about, there will be situations that will come up. Like materialistic things, or your career, or, and it will come up. Maybe even your mom, your family. Well, there's going to be some strife, yeah. So how do you deal with that? So I'm just throwing that out there.
I think that's really good, Trevor. Now that this book, I can give my deep thoughts. So I think it's really good that the husband had the attitude of really wanting to serve his spouse. Like you mentioned, as Christ sacrificed and died for the church, that's how we're supposed to care and serve for them. So a lot of times, I don't know, we don't pray together, but we don't want to pray together, but maybe I should take the lead and say, hey, let's pray together. Or maybe she's just really trying to care for her needs. Is how I can be a spiritual leader.
And we're learning. I mean, really, I'm learning. It is so, that's why last week I shared that, for guys to lead, it's challenging. It's one of the most challenging tasks, and I'm trying to learn. That's why I have spiritual mentors I can go to. I'm like, hey, how do you do this? And it's challenging. So, yeah.
Just going off of challenges, there's this question here. It says, Pastor Joy mentioned the need to face fears before being in a committed relationship. What kinds of fears, or what are some concrete examples of fears that you had to deal with? Are there still fears that come up in your relationship? And if so, how do you deal with them?
Fears as in dating or as in marriage? Or both? Because the whole different.
What are maybe some of the different fears that you had in the dating stage and now in the marriage phase?
So you're asking for both?
Yeah. Or whichever one you would like to share.
This is easy. You guys just don't want to talk. So, okay. You guys always want me to go first. Why? So, okay, for me, so I was young. You guys already know for those of you who were last week. I was really young. Got married at 21. And so, I lost a lot of freedom from hanging out with the guys. Just hang out with the guys. Like in graduate school, we would always go out at midnight to play basketball on Friday night. Just what we do. But then, you know, I'd have to sneak out. I snuck out of the house to do that when we were walking, and she would just get really upset when I did that. But, you know, that's just part of the freedom that I miss doing. Or playing on the softball league, you know, when I'm in college or when I'm in graduate school in Boston. It's just really fun stuff. So for me, it's missing the fear of, or it wasn't fear, I actually did miss the freedom of being with my guy friends.
I second that.
So I think the context of that question was in when the woman in Song of Solomon went out at night, right? It was part of her dream, right? And she was, you know, she longed for her, you know, her lover, right? And but was willing to brave like the darkness of the night and, you know, just being alone. And she was found by like the guards and stuff. And I think that what that is supposed to show is that, you know, love is supposed to overcome fear, right? And so I think maybe one of the biggest things to be willing to face is, I guess, the fear of intimacy and responsibility, knowing that, you know, someone's gonna get to know you, like really know you, like all your nasty sides, and you have to be okay with that. And I think related to that is the responsibility that, you know, someone's going to be depending on you, and especially if you have kids, you know, that kids are really going to need you like all the time, not when you want it, but whenever they need it. And, you know, to a lesser extent, the wife needs me. But, you know, it's just that kind of thing. There are a lot of things that, you know, you wouldn't want on their own, but are definitely worth it for love.
For this particular question, I'm thinking at it from the standpoint of like physical fears, like, oh, what are my blemishes, and fears of like responsibility, like, oh, am I ready for this or not? What about my quirks, you know? So these are, I don't know if this answers the question for the person who wrote this. It takes time, it takes trust. Let's say, you know, I can speak only for the guys. You know, guys, you know, we go camping, you know, how many guys went camping, right? You go on these journeys and you camp, and in the beginning, everyone's like holding their fart and not willing to, like, you know, and after 4 or 5 days, they're like farting everywhere, like, hey, look at this, you know, like, come on guys, I mean, come on, let's be honest here, right? And so you just let everything like loose, right? Like, hey, you know, how's it going? And you wake up, and you brush your teeth, you're like, hey, what? Anyways, that's the, hope we can delete this part. Cut, okay. But you know, like in a relationship, you'll get to that point, and not to say that, you know, time, but also you accept that person for who they are. You go through your journey together, and you are beauty to your eyes later in life, and I believe that. You know, when a person snores at night, or when a person, you know, no, it really, it really is. It, you know, but you know, because I've spoken to some of the elderly grandpas and grandmas and stuff like that. They tell me like these are the little quirky things that they end up loving about their spouse, and it's beautiful. And don't be ashamed of it, because that is who you are. hope these fears would be wiped away by, you know, your love and trust for each other, and more importantly, you know, how God will continue to bring the two of you together as you focus on the important things. And so hopefully that answers a
I think for me it was in our earlier part of the marriage, because as you know, we married when, at least he was very young. And so for me it was the fear.
24 is young. Some of these people 24.
Oh, that's
That's
true.
young.
I was 24. But for me, it was a fear of love, because why I'm saying that is because I looked to him for enjoyment, to satisfy me, to make me happy. And he fell short plenty of times, because he's not perfect. Nobody's perfect. And so for me, what I've learned from that is to look for God for my enjoyment, because he's my ultimate joy. And once I did that, then I was happy to be with him. He was perfect. But before I realized that, because I didn't realize that back then, I was a young Christian, and so it was very hard. But once I realized that my pride and joy is in God first, then it was much easier to enjoy him.
You could love a dog then.
No, that's not the same. It doesn't speak back.
Okay. Great. Michael working the dog.
Maybe it's not so bad.
No, it's not that bad. Just generalized.
Okay.
Again, especially for the people that came in a little bit later, tonight it's very interactive. We have another 10-15 minutes to just enjoy this time together before we break off into gender-specific groups. So if you have any kind of questions, raise your hand or just say something.
I have a follow-up question. Last week we talked about even this. You said like don't date when you're not ready. I want you guys to give some wisdom about the other extreme though. What if I never think I'm ready? What if I'm like many of us? We still live at home with our parents, and so we're like, I don't know. I don't want to take that step. So what do you think? What's your insight or wisdom on that extreme?
You're never ready.
I love
My
that.
take on that is that it's okay to date as long as your character is towards God. You may not be ready because you don't have a job or something, but it's okay to date and to keep going, dating and knowing the person as long as your character. That's my personal, I don't know if everybody else agree with me, but that's my personal opinion. That you are ready as long as your character is right with God and you're going there, and that your goal is eventually dating for marriage. You can date for 10 years, you can date for 5 years, all depends. Whether you're financially ready or that kind of thing. But can you withstand 10 years relationship without touching, without going the next step? That's the question. If you cannot hold it, then you better not date. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's when you know you're ready. If you're ready, you think you're ready, okay, go ahead, do it. But if you know that financially you're not ready, can you do 5 years until you're ready financially to support this person, to marry that person? So you take all of that and you'll find out. You'll know when you're ready. Even if you say, oh, I'm reading this book, that book, and I have to be in that certain, you know. By then, it may be harder because you're older. You attain everything you wanted. I'm speaking the truth. You attain financially, you're secure. I want to have an apartment, whatever. I want to have a good relationship with God and all that. Then I can have a date. But then it would be hard to find because most of the women are already taken. That's usually what happens. So it's okay to go on a relationship knowing that you're ready spiritually, but then you have to realize if it's going to take me 5 or 10 years to get a job, can I wait that long? It's up to you.
So last week, Trevor and Wade, you guys talked about being right with God before dating again. So what does it mean by being right with God?
I forgot the context. Can you elaborate a little more?
That's what you used. That was the word you used.
So before we didn't know God, essentially did we have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ? Was He the Lord of our lives? And was it demonstrated in our lives were there fruit of the Spirit in our lives? So That's what we meant by being right with God. I mean, if back then I was living a double life, so that's definitely, I was not, I was going to church, doing all the things, but I was dating non-Christian and doing my own thing, and I had other idols in my life, like academia, like success, things like that. And so I wasn't right with God in that sense.
I think that, there's that maturity, right? I think for the panel here, there's some of us started dating at different maturity levels of our Christian walk. So please take it with a grain of salt, don't look at it from a standpoint of, you guys, what you're sharing doesn't really match. Because sometimes when we were dating, we started dating when we were non-believers, and then later on we came back together as believers. So that's why we wanted to give you the context, the background behind different stages and different hurdles that we've gone through. And it's different from Chris and Becca and and the three couples here. So it's very different. And I still stand by that. I still stand by that you need to be right with God. I think that is the most ideal. That doesn't mean that, you can shoot for the A+. And that's what we want. We're trying to encourage that. And none of us are perfect. We didn't get that A+. But we hope that you folks would learn from our mistakes, because that's why we're here sharing this. We're not perfect. We're not saying that we are. And we want you guys to, just see from our flaws and some of the road bumps that we came through. And hopefully when we share some of these things, that when you guys go through them, that you guys have someone to go to and talk to. Like, hey, you guys gone through this. How did you deal with it? So that's why we're here.
I would say, your question kind of addresses the question that Wes just asked, which is like, how do you know you're ready? Part of that would be, how do you know if you're spiritually mature enough? I think I can think of two things. It's kind of hard to generalize this rule, but one is, I'd say, find wise, perceptive people that know you, or that might be able to know you, and ask them what they think. So not everyone in your peer group, not only people in your peer group, I think it would be good to get perspectives of other people in life, like maybe your parents that you don't want to listen to, or whoever, not just Roosevelt. Another thing is, are you ready to just not be selfish anymore? Or are you ready to start living for more than just yourself? Live for God first, and God, he basically tells the husband to live for his wife in a lot of ways. Are you ready to do that kind of thing? And if those two are affirmative, then you're on the right track. That's what I would say.
I would say, are you, and kind of answer both, are you ready for commitment? Are you ready? Because I think a lot of people nowadays, especially your age, you guys aren't that young, but after 2 or 3 years, it comes to the point where, hey, are we going to get married or not? And so it happens pretty quick. You're not going to be engaged for like 5 years or whatever. Just marriage comes really quick. So if you're going to start dating, are you ready to be that committed to one person? Are you going to miss other things by just being totally committed to someone? Another reason to get to know, or another way to know if you're ready to get married, is, are you able to promote godliness in another person? Are you able to help encourage that person into a deeper relationship with God? And then another thing would be, are you ready, for the guys, are you ready to financially support them? I mean, if you just, I don't know, if you're not able to support, I don't know if you're ready to support another person, another family, and a family. I don't know if you're ready for that deeper commitment. Then I would say, you have to be attracted to the person too. You have to be attracted to someone. If you're not attracted, no.
I don't think that has anything to do with readiness. It's a good natural guy.
This
seems a little bit related. What is your definition of guarding your heart? It seems that some take it as not dating or talking to the opposite gender at all.
I'll just step out a limb and say, guarding your heart does not mean that you should not talk to the opposite gender. If you talk to the opposite gender, it's still very possible and plausible that you can guard your heart. Anymore.
I actually want to
Just to dispel that. Your heart will not just disappear if you talk to the opposite gender. Oh, no. What does it mean to guard your heart?
Have you heard that before?
Maybe you should tell me what it means by guarding your heart.
You know what? If you think that guarding your heart is not talking to the opposite gender, it's very likely that you will lose your heart to the first person of the opposite gender that you talk to. And you will therefore have lost your heart.
I don't understand what guarding your heart means. Does it mean that you don't want to have emotion towards the opposite gender? Is that what it means? Not giving yourself to the opposite gender? I mean, to what extent? I don't understand what guarding the heart means. It can mean, to a woman, emotions is very strong. So when you say guarding your heart, are you meaning that I don't want to have any emotion for the opposite gender? Whether it be just talking to the person or deeper than that with intimacy? So what does it mean guarding your heart? I don't know.
Yeah, that's good. Why don't you answer it as if that's what it was?
Well,
I said, opening up to them.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh, opening up.
Yeah.
What was the question again?
What does it mean to guard your heart?
Oh, okay. Well, you can look at it as not opening yourself up to the person, meaning that emotionally you're not letting the other person know who you are. So, in other words, being vulnerable. I'm speaking as a female now. Guarding my heart is that I just want to guard it, so I want to be emotionally involved with somebody else when I know that that person is true to me and wants to be serious with me. So for a woman's point of view, it's guarding my feelings because I want to protect myself. Because once I let out that emotion, I become vulnerable. So that's how I understand it. I don't know if that answered the question to whoever was asking.
And if you guys agree, you guys can nod your head so we can like gauge it. Or like let us know, really. I mean, it helps us to, because this panel is for us to try to get to know you folks, you know, and back and forth. You can help us a little bit, that'd be good.
So if that's what that answer is. And then if you want to go a step further, then...
Okay, I think it's tough, girl. She's submitting. You gotta make her submit sometime. Just kidding. I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, I think it's really tough, girls, for the guys, if you are so guarded that if a guy talks to you, you get the wrong impression. I'm not blaming the girls, but you can cause a lot of frustration on a guy by just, and then the guy thinks, oh, well, I can
see the guys nodding.
I can talk to my coworkers at work, and everything's fine. It's just the girls are so uptight at girls at church. Are just so uptight, I can't even talk to them. And I think a lot of times girls should open up a little.
That sounds like the opposite.
But that's the guy's perspective, because, yeah.
Well, where's the line between awkwardness and guarding the heart?
Let me give you an example.
That's a good question. No, that's a
Let
good
me give you
question.
an example. Like, let's say at work, a guy would say to his coworker, wow, this dress looks good on you, I like it. they will feel, oh, yeah, thank you. You say that to a girl at church, what would the response be? Wow, he's hitting on me, right?
But,
So that's an example.
but shouldn't we be encouraging more in church rather than the workplace? Are we? I mean, not to say I like your dress all the time to every single girl. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying, isn't the church supposed to be a place where we encourage more than the workplace? So having that thought, like if I say that to a coworker, it's okay, but if I say it to someone in church, wouldn't it be withholding encouragement?
This is one of those questions. You know, I'll be honest. At least for me right here, I can't speak for the whole panel. This is one of those questions very difficult because we don't want, you know, the church to be a meat market, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, we don't want everyone to like walk by. You don't even look at each other, and like, and you sit down like all the guys are on one side, all the girls are on one side, you know, like, and I mean we don't want that too, you know, and we want some sort of, you know, like friendship, right? And where, how, and like it's shared, it really depends on the maturity of the crowd. Really, right? How mature are you? Are you ready? Are you like, and it's different. Like every situation is different, and this is a tough question. I'm just being honest. Because some guys, some girls out there, they're like, I'm ready to date. Like I have all the things, right? But then other people in the crowd might not be. So I respect the girls that guard their heart. I really do. I respect the guys that give them that distance. I really, really do. I really dislike guys who go out there and say, hey, how you doing? You know, like, oh my goodness, let me kick his butt, you know? And it's true. And so I really, really respect them like that. But at the same time, I guess that there's a fine line. Like, we don't want you to go like don't talk to each other and don't communicate. And so that's why I believe in one thing. In a group setting, it's okay. Everyone's around, like, just by talking to each other in a group setting, in this public setting here, you know, it's okay. Don't guard yourself. If you're just, I don't know, on the beach and you're alone, you see each other like, hey, you know, like, okay, that's, you know, right? But in your group setting, it's okay. When let's say you go bowling, have fun, high five, it's okay. You can touch each other and high five, it's all right. But if you're at the beach, don't just high five for no reason, you know? But that's my point. Okay, so I hope that this, and I really pray for this. I want you guys to go out there and get to know each other, because that's how you know if this person is right, and in this group settings, right, and with these opportunities. And so I hope that we'll get more of those opportunities, but you know, more group opportunities to hang out and get to know each other.
Okay, so from the guy's perspective, I can see a girl, okay, just getting too close, right, talking like this.
Mm-hmm.
Or I could just crowd, and that could be the awkward, okay, that could be invading someone's space. But I think a lot of guys will say stuff to a girl, this guy's perspective, and you can't take it wrong. You can't think that every guy is hitting on you just because they say, oh, I like how you helped with that special need kid today. You know, it's just an encouragement. It's just a compliment. So yeah, girls just can't take things verbally the wrong way, because I think most of the time I would think that the guys are not actually hitting on them. So in the meat market sense.
A good way for a girl to find out whether a guy is hitting on them is if they do it to everybody. If they do it to everybody, then that's the way he does it.
No, some guys are
If
smart.
he only you observe, okay? If he behaves only a certain way just towards you, then you know he's interested in you. But if he does that to here and there, then you know either he's interested in all these girls.
But some guys can be like, nice dress, hey, nice dress. Hey, you know, I'm just, you know.
Yeah, but you can tell. You know, you have eyes, you have ears, you can tell.
So I met with 2 young people this past Saturday. And you won't believe these 2 young people. There's no, as long as I know, there's no relationship developing. There's no interest. Okay, right, Gabriel? There's no interest, right? No. So anyway, I won't say the girl and Gabriel. So anyway, Gabriel has a chicken salad because we're meeting at lunchtime on a Saturday afternoon. And then the girl comes in.
You can step outside if you want.
And then the girl comes in, and then Gabriel goes, "Are you hungry?" And the girl goes, "Yeah." And then, so they only have one fork. And so the girl starts using that fork and eating the salad. And I was like, "Hey, that's pretty cool." And there's no like miscommunication, there's no awkwardness. I said, it all depends on the girl. I mean, there was definitely no hitting going on. Right, Gabriel? I'm pretty sure. So I thought, hey, that's pretty cool that they can be that, they could just be friends, because that can be taken wrongly in a lot of other situations.
That's true. The girls do set a lot of the tone.
I think it's kind of difficult to say that all compliments from guys are like that girls should not take them like as if they are, because sometimes it will be that they are, you know. I think on both sides, wouldn't you say that like both sides kind of have to be mindful of that? Because yeah, just tell a girl like, oh, dude, don't take anything that they're saying as if they actually like you. Like that could be, you know, there's always a balance. Because it, like, for females, it's like, I'm one of the people who, like, believe, like, yeah, we should guard our hearts, because a lot of times we can get attached to people, and even if a guy's, like, you know, treating all the girls, like, putting their arms around them, hugging them, you know, like, poking them, or talking to them, whatever, woo-woo, like, it could still cause you to, like, have feelings for them, and that would be more, like, hurtful for that female, because of guys doing that to everyone, right? So, like, I feel like a lot of these things, it is a tricky question, and we have to find the balance, like both girls and guys. Like, guys respecting the girls, girls not taking everything as if the guys are, like, you know, on the prowl all the time or something, but it's like balance, you know.
Told you guys are smart. No, that's so true. This is a tough one.
So I think I'm straight a little bit from the idea of guarding your heart. If I think about this question, I think about who might ask it. And it's a girl concerned with purity, probably, or, you know, like just wanting to make sure that she's doing things the right way. And I think guarding your heart has a lot to do with like giving up power or control, like giving power to someone else, right? Like if you're guarding your heart, you're guarding something precious, right? Your heart is where the seat of your very self is, right? And if someone takes something from there, they have something very important that's a part of you, right? And so they have some kind of power. But if I think about it in terms of how that actually looks, I would say share appropriately within proper relationships. So, you know, it's like Trevor brought up sharing in groups. There's a different relationship in a group setting than you have one-on-one, like at the beach, right? There's a very different relationship that I have with my wife, Rebecca, than I would have with like some random girl, right? You need to think about who you're sharing with, what context that's in. I think ice queens are unhealthy. If we had a church full of ice queens who did a great job of guarding their hearts and ended up being dead, basically to every guy, then that would not be healthy, that would not be good, right? So there has to be a way for people to share in general, for people to be vulnerable in general. And so you have to think about the relationships that you have and what's appropriate to share.
Cool. So we're past our time, but I do want to touch on this one question because it's been written a couple times. And so just to get your final thoughts, it may be tough. Why do you think that people are not dating in SIA? Do you think a factor is that our old youth pastor didn't allow dating in high school and people were growing together more like siblings?
Sure, that could be part of it.
Say the last part again. I didn't catch the last part. Sorry.
Like our old youth pastor would not allow people to date in high school, and people are growing together more like siblings.
That's actually two separate issues.
Okay. Well, this is what.
Why see not dating? I mean,
Why do you think people in SIA are not dating?
You tell us.
I
I
sense the guys wrote that question, right?
And look at the handwriting. I guess.
How the question is written seems like if I need to answer it, I have to answer it in a way that I'm encouraging dating.
That's true.
Right? And so I need to be careful in terms of, I'm just sharing this, so we have to be careful in how we should answer it too. Just being honest. Because I don't want to make it seem like, oh, therefore they're not, so we should encourage more. Like I said, for me, I just think that depending on where you guys are at, really. I mean, some people who are still in college is different than some of you who are been working in the industry for a few years, and your mom's like, I mean, translation, like, come on, like, when are you gonna, go like tie the knot, right? And so, yeah, so it really depends on where you're at. So I have to be careful in, how I answer that. So
I think I understand that question and even the previous question because I was an ice queen. They used, like my, pastor's wife used to call me that before I became a Christian. And I have a hard time answering, but I completely and wholeheartedly feel for the girls who want to guard their hearts because that's definitely I strongly feel for that, and I understand what the guys are trying to talk about too. I understand that perspective, but I still, even to this day, feel like I need to protect my heart, even in marriage. Like if I were to converse with another guy, I don't want to wholeheartedly give myself in terms of connecting with another guy emotionally that I don't with my husband. Say if I get into a fight and I'm upset with him, then I talk to another guy, then there's some sort of emotional connectedness that I have with him, and that's my sense of in terms of guarding my heart, in terms of like when you were saying intimacy and emotion. In terms of that second question about why are people in SIA not dating, I think people, what Trevor was saying is maturity level. I think guys just need to have the courage to ask, and then maybe some girls just don't feel that they're ready, and respecting that.
Yeah, respect that.
Respect that they're not ready. If they say no, they just don't feel ready. And if they say no to you, then if they say yes to another guy the next week, maybe they're not ready. They just don't like you, and just accept that. That's just the way it is. And they were talking about rejection in terms of guys. But in terms of talking about the youth pastor, I feel like I was in that generation. I am the Joshua Harris, I Kiss Dating Goodbye generation. That book was given to me when I was in high school by my youth counselor. We read it, that was like our Bible about dating. And so I totally understand where you guys are coming from. But I feel like that question kind of blames the youth pastor and blames that book for the generation and how it's turned out. It may be, but we are living here now in 2014. We don't have to allow those kind of things to shape our dating relationships. Just guys, ask girls out, and girls work out your things. Like what I was saying with Samantha earlier about being right with God yourself and working through your fears or your issues. And when you're ready, then you can say yes to whoever asks you and you feel that connectedness. I think it's more of a blame game, and don't blame the pastor and don't blame the book on that.
I don't think there's anything wrong. I don't think there's anything wrong with you people not dating. It's fine because I think you keep hearing me say to enjoy your freedom. I just see how you guys are sitting. It's all the guys, couple girls, guys. Even how you sit is by gender. And so I don't think it's
not the back. Good job. Good job. Back.
Oh, the back girl. I think it's biblical for guys to view their fellow Christian girls as sisters. I think that's okay. I can't think of the passage, but I know it's in the Bible. All right, I'll look at it. You guys laugh at me.
I mean, I think I'll say I think it very much is a cultural thing. If we think we're not dating enough too. I mean, we're Chinese people. We're supposed to be focused on academics, who might be more awkward than any of our Western counterparts. And we're an evangelical church where purity is a very big concern. Yeah, and we're not. I think we're confused. Maybe a lot of times we're confused about what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. We feel awkward about a lot of things that maybe we just don't know how to deal with. And so there are a lot of factors that contribute to that. I think we just need to learn how to just relate to each other.
1 Timothy 5:1-2. And this is to young men. Do not sharply rebuke an older man, but rather appeal to him as a father, to the younger men as brothers, the older women as mothers, and then the younger women as sisters, in all purity. So maybe the guys just view you girls as sisters and pure.
I think partly is growing up together in the church, you do view each other like sisters and brothers because you grew up together. So that's why when you see newcomers coming, everybody flock towards them because they're new. It's new blood.
I want to go back to one point actually, what Melody brought up, for people who are too touchy and stuff like that, it is something that must be, if it's a guy, really be careful. Some girls might not feel comfortable. That's number one. Really respect that. Number two, for the guys who do, once you do start dating, once you do get into a relationship, once you do get serious, how would your spouse, how would your person who you're with, how would they feel if you continue to do that, right? So think of it from a long-term perspective too. And, for girls, if you do that, you might send the wrong signals, to guys, and you might create drama. And so, have that little, respect it. I think that's very important. So I think that is one topic that I think that we wanted to bring up, on the panel, and I want to make that very clear. Yeah. So thanks for bringing that up. So.
Cool. Well, thank you for your honesty and wisdom. At this time, I think the guys should break off. Ladies can stay here. We got to find a room elsewhere and continue the conversation on our own. So, guys gather and follow me. But thank you for sharing.